Welcome to our podcast, Fuck the Diet Cycle, with myself, Lauren Knight, and Abby Lodge. This podcast is for you if you're ready to end the diet cycle. So grab yourself a cuppa, get comfy, and let's jump straight into this week's episode. Welcome to our first ever episode of this podcast. We are going to talk all things our weight loss journey, our highs, our lows, and how we actually maintain now that we've ended the diet cycle. So I'll go first. I have lost 6 stone and have been maintaining for 6 years. Now, has it been easy? Not always, but it has completely changed my life. I have been on a diet for as long as I can remember. My first ever diet probably was around the age of 11, and it just spiraled on from there. Those biggest female role models in my life were always on a diet as well, so I kind of didn't know any different. Abby, are you the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I pretty much followed in the female relatives in my family's footstep. They always struggled with their weight, always on a diet, always doing some next crazy level plan or whatever it was, but never actually getting to where they wanted to be. So for me, growing up, obviously being around that and then having children myself, for me, it was something that I didn't want to then pass on to my daughter or my son, because let's face it, weight doesn't discriminate wherever you are. So I quickly after my daughter's arrival, very premature, during lockdown, I hit a really, really low point in my mental health. Everything was kind of up in the air as it was during COVID. I couldn't hold my daughter, I couldn't see my daughter. It was awful. And that is when my eating habits took the biggest spiral, and I comfort ate till the cows come home. And it was a really, really awful place. And I couldn't see any way out apart from, just carrying on. And if I was carrying on, my health was in massive threat. So once we'd finally got out of hospital and stuff, I made it my duty really to actually get a grip on myself and start to learn about my food habits and how to lose that weight, but not just lose that weight. Losing the weight is absolutely fine. It's about maintaining that weight. Anybody can lose weight. Anybody can go on any crazy diet or whatever. But it's about actually tackling those demons, those inner food issues that you have in order to not pass that on. So for me, I lost 4 stone in 16 weeks using products from the One-to-One Diet by Cambridge Weight Plan. And my weight came off very, very fast. And that was amazing, absolutely fantastic. But the work didn't stop there. The part of this plan that is so key is that we go through that process of reverse dieting, because we take away food to begin with. But then we need to start, that's where our problem lies, is the food. So you take the food away, you haven't got a problem because you don't have to think about food. It's when you start to then include food back into your diet and start to reverse diet out of it, is where you're going to really learn about these triggers and things like that actually have led you to be where you was.
Yeah, exactly that. And you've touched like points there of you was following the same footsteps as those female role models. You had a daughter, and obviously you've got a son as well, but it does feel a bit more predominant for our daughters because that's what we know. That's where that line of weight loss journey, always being on a diet, binge restrict happens. So to have that moment where you go, actually, do you know what? I don't want that for my daughter. Obviously, you don't want it for your son, but it is mainly for the females. And I was exactly the same. I had got to the point where I was out of control. I was eating chocolate every single day because that's what I learned how to do on another plan, another diet, because I was able to point that in. And when I came off of that plan, not only was I still having chocolate because now I was highly addicted to that, my portion size got bigger. I still wasn't doing any exercise. And by that point, I had created such a bad habit that I didn't know how to change that. And it just got worse. I was using food therapy. I was using food for happiness. I was using food as an excuse to go out on dates with my husband, movies, whatever it was. Food was always at the center. And every single waking moment, I was thinking about food, when I was going to next get it, how I was going to plan my day around food. And it took over my life. But at the heart of all of that, I was deeply unhappy. I was hiding away from the world. I couldn't hold my eye contact with my own reflection. I was cutting clothes off myself. It affected my relationship in the bedroom. It reflected what I could or couldn't do with my children. And it started taking over my life. So it got to the point where enough was enough. I either accepted that this is what my life was going to become, or I started to learn how to take back the control, lose the weight. And like you said, more importantly, how was I going to break this cycle so that my daughter wouldn't go through it and I wasn't going to go back to square one? So I went on to lose that 6 stone with the one-to-one diet by Cambridge Weight Plan. And now I am happily in a food freedom world without needing to have the products every day. And that's something I really want to get across to people. The diet cycle can be ended, but like you've already started covering, Abby, it's about changing your mindset and relationship towards food. So what kind of things do you do now in maintenance to make sure that you don't go back to square one?
So for me, following all of my journey and things like that, one of my biggest things was actually being mindful around food and those habits. I had a lot of like home triggers, and actually being awake and alert to these things so that I knew when they were coming. But also, like you said, portion control, because I'd done a previous plan which allowed you to have unlimited pasta, potatoes, all that types of thing. If you tell a food addict, which we are food addicts, you can have unlimited XYZ, be damned that you are going to be having unlimited XYZ. So for me, my biggest tool that I still now use to this day, and I will not stop using it in order to help me maintain my weight, is I will eat my food off a child's plate. Doesn't mean that I have a child's portion, absolutely not, but it's just our plates at home are huge, as in big, fat square ones. And before, I was piling that up and piling that up, because to me it's a psychological thing. That plate has to be covered, so obviously you're going to consume it. If you think back to childhood, you don't get down from that table unless you finished all that food. That's ingrained in us. Yep. So for me, by coming away from those huge giant plates and eating off a smaller plate or a side plate or whatever has helped me mentally actually accept that I don't need to eat the same as my husband or filling those plates beyond control. I can still now happily put, and you can get a good size on a kid's plate. At first, it looks like, when you've been used to eating huge portions and then you portion out on your child's plate, you think, okay, I'm going to be starving. But actually, when you get to that point in the diet cycle where you are aware of what you're eating, you're tasting food, because I never used to taste food before. I just used to inhale it and always be hungry afterwards, because that brain and stomach response was taking, it wasn't kicking in. But by taking that time, by drinking water in between mouthfuls and actually putting my knife and fork down in between like mouthfuls and stuff, allows you to actually register, I am tasting food, I am enjoying the food, and I am getting full. And knowing that is just something that's so huge. What about you?
Yeah, so you've just touched base. I also eat off a side plate, but you've just touched base on something there about having that message come from your brain to your stomach so that you can start understanding when you are actually starting to feel full. Because there is a difference between feeling satisfied full or bloated full and uncomfortable. And it's at the point where you get to satisfied full, which is what was something I never knew before. I didn't even know what that felt like or what I needed to be looking out for. And that has come over time and practice. But now, if I push myself to the point where I'm uncomfortably full, which is my reality every day when I was at 16 stone, I actually hate it. It makes me feel awful. I feel tired. I feel drained. And like it hurts. So now I enjoy having that little bit of room left, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
when you start practicing that feeling and looking out for that feeling, it feels good. I'm satisfied because I've ate really nice food. I'm happy because I've been in control. And I feel amazing because actually I've not just weighed myself down to the point of being so uncomfortable that I can't get on with my everyday tasks. So listening out for that message is so important, and it's something that comes with practice. But now it's just it just happens on a day-to-day basis. And by having that side plate, it helps me keep that in check. But if I'm out in a restaurant, the way I get around that is obviously the portion size is bigger. So it's learning how to stop when you feel that point. And the way I do that is by putting a serviette on my plate, because it stops that mindless eating whilst you're still having a chat and the plate's still in front of you. So I put that serviette over when I know I've got to that point, and that way I can't keep on going, because instinct again tells me your plate needs to be empty. In reality, it doesn't. There's too much food there. So I have to help myself out by putting that serviette over the top.
Yeah, and it's about when you get to that point when you have lost weight, it's about looking out for yourself and caring for yourself enough to know these things that you do need to do in order to protect you from that. Because like you said, if you eat to the point of total, like, so uncomfortable, you know, you're undoing your jeans and or you're getting changed into your leggings or whatever, all that leads you to do is go, fuck it, I'm absolutely stuffed. I'm going to carry on now because I can't feel much worse. And that was my everyday reality, was feeling so sluggish, so rubbish, just lazing around, but still carrying on eating because I'm uncomfortable anyway. So I might as well just carry it on. And when you get to that point, something needs to happen and you need to start to change things and actually be aware. Like you said, when you now are aware and you do start to feel that horrible heaviness in your stomach, you think that's not how I want to feel. And people think that that is a normal, that you should eat food until you are so full. Absolutely, we should be eating food until we are satisfied full, but not overindulged to the point of being so full, because that's not normal and that's not good for our bodies. Think how long that takes for our body to process that food and get it out of your system. Like that just puts even more stress on your body. So it's about helping yourself out and thinking, am I 100% satisfied here? Because that's when it's worth it. So also not kind of dividing foods into good food, bad food, or naughty food, treat, cheat meal, whatever you want to call it these days. That also helps, because if you are saying those negative words around food about that's bad food or whatever, you're naturally, like a child, you're going to want to have it more and more and more. So not having any foods off limit, no food for me or you is off limits within maintenance. If we really want to have, I don't know, a pizza, for example, we are going to enjoy that pizza. We're going to have that pizza, but because we've put in that foundations and that work of accepting and acknowledging when our body is becoming satisfied, we are able to push that food away again and say, I've had enough. And that still kind of shocks my husband and stuff when I'm like, if we have a pizza and I'm like, I have a few slices and he's like, you done? Yeah, I'm done. I'm satisfied. I'm hungry. I'm not hungry. And he's like, but you still got half the pizza left. Yeah, I don't care. I'm not a dustbin. So why am I going to be wasting food, putting it into my body because it's there? Like, leave it on the side. If you want to have it later, you can have it later, or if not, it will go in the bin. And a lot of people are so worried about wasting food and being rude. I find, if you're around somebody's or whatever, you can't leave food on the plate because that's rude. It's absolutely not. Like, it's saying no to food isn't rude. You're looking out for yourself, and 9 times out of 10 people actually don't really care, and just kindly declining and saying, I'm full, I'm satisfied. And then people will start to say, how do you get to that point? Because it's so alien to so many people to actually be able to push away such foods.
Yeah. And I think that all goes back to the personal development that you put in, so that when you do get to have that food back and you start working through those steps and you understand your triggers and you see where you are using food in a way that doesn't actually makes sense, because when you look at it from an outside, you're like, why am I doing this? I don't actually want that. That food that I'm turning to is the same thing that's making me so unhappy in my own skin. So how am I going to reverse that out? And having that personal development and really committing to your journey is genuinely the reason why I think we are so successful in maintenance. We've changed that narrative. We see food in a different way. I still love food. I still enjoy food. I still get to eat food, but I eat it from a different way. I eat it from a balanced way, and I eat it from a maintenance way. So we do not need the meal replacement products on a day-to-day basis anymore. If we have one, it's because we choose to have one, and that's why ending the diet cycle is so important.
And also, like you just said about the meal replacements, having one, it, you know, we don't need to have it. It's only if we enjoy it. For me as well, I will only have one again if I enjoy it. But if I'm running around like a headless chicken or whatever, and it's during the day and I haven't prepared myself something, I will just grab one for ease. But that very, very rarely happens, because now I know that I need to be planning. If you're not planning, you know, the meals that you're going to be having and stuff like that, then you are likely to slip up. But for me, those meal replacements were always used as a crutch for me, and they're not there anymore, because I am now confident and comfortable enough to stand up on my own 2 feet around food, to make those choices and to still enjoy food. And a lot of people actually think that when you're overweight, you're such a foodie, you enjoy food, but you're not enjoying food. You're not tasting it. You're not enjoying that experience. Food is there to be enjoyed, and it's until you start to unpick that and work your way through it, you actually realize you weren't enjoying food at all, and things were becoming out of control.
Absolutely. So we hope that this episode shows you that there is an end in sight. You do not need to be on meal replacement products or any other diet for the rest of your life. And you can lead a food freedom world where you do genuinely enjoy food. Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow us on social media using the links below. And don't forget, new episodes come out every single Sunday.